Joining me now, trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Marris, to talk about this case and what we expect to see. Thank you, as always. The U.S. District Judge in the case rejected the idea that this is a simple open and shut assault case, arguing that the government bears the heavy burden of proving intent. Do you agree?
With every case, of course, the government has that burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Marni, this is how I break down these two charges. With respect to the attempted kidnapping charge, that will be the challenge for the government to prove that intent to kidnap Nancy Pelosi for the purpose of interfering with her official business. That is going to be a more difficult case and largely will depend on what evidence comes in. And we'll go back to that in a minute. As far as the assault case, this one to me is really a no-brainer. The court has already ruled that the video is going to be admissible and the jury is going to see it. So the assault component of the case seems to be pretty open and shut. The question mark, it relates to the kidnapping component. Some of the evidence that we may see in the trial relates to police interviews that were conducted with DePape. And to the extent that those come in, well, that intent factor becomes a bit easier because he has rope and zip ties and all of these things found on his person. And he says, I want to interrogate Nancy Pelosi. Now, will that statement come in? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, but this video evidence is so compelling and strong. You've got 3 women, 12 men who make up the jury pool here. How important will Paul Pelosi's testimony be when he takes the stand, his own account as the victim?
It's going to be incredibly important. First of all, we know that he was severely injured. He's going to go through all of the events that lead up to this video. And Marni, speaking of the jury, the video was a central component in the jury selection because the jurors were warned you were going to see a graphic video during this trial. And so all of that testimony that Paul Pelosi will put out there, that's going to be very important because not only do we have the assault component, we do have to show that intent component from a prosecutor's perspective relating to the other charge. So everything that was said and everything that happens is going to be incredibly relevant. And Paul Pelosi, in this case, he's the star witness.
Yep. And if you're the defense, how are you strategizing? What's your approach?
It's so funny, Marni, because I expected, and we've talked about this case since it happened, I thought they would raise a mental health type of defense, at least diminished capacity. I think a lot of people thought that was coming. We know now that is not their intention. They have filed papers that have said they're not going to seek insanity. They're not going to talk about diminished capacity. So all of that's out the window. I actually think the defense is looking at this from the perspective of building an appellate record. They're going to let the prosecutors take the wheel. They've been tight-lipped about what their defense is going to actually be. They're going to say, prosecutors, you have the burden. And this whole time, they're going to be building an appellate record. And Marni, starting with, defense had asked for a change of venue. They said it was impossible for him to get a fair trial where Nancy Pelosi is a governing official. And so I think they're going to be looking at it from that perspective and just say, hey, prosecutors, you have the burden of proof. Now, can that change as the course of the case goes forward? Of course. I'm going to be listening very carefully to their opening statements from the defense side to see what they're actually looking to do in that courtroom and where they're going to see the vulnerabilities in the prosecutor's case.
Right. They were unsuccessful trying to get the trial moved, so it will take place in Pelosi's hometown. Who else do you anticipate will be called to the stand that could be important in this case?
So we've seen some of the witness list. We know from the defense side, one of the witnesses they intend to call is an individual who DePape had said he was going to go to next. So that's an interesting aspect. They're also going to call someone to the stand who's going to speak about some of the conspiracy theories that he is a part of. I found that to be a really interesting person on that list. And I think the defense is going to use them as a quasi-expert. And perhaps that will be looped back into the defense. Now, on the flip side, prosecutors using those conspiracy theories themselves in the context of their case, this is an area where they're trying to show intent. They're saying DePape, he was a part of this conspiratorial, this idea that about government officials, and that led to his ultimate desire to kidnap Nancy Pelosi, interrogate her, and break her kneecaps if he wasn't successful in the interrogation. And all of those conspiracy theories are going to go to that intent element. So we're going to hear from some witnesses on that front as well.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.